the pipe. I toss and turn and pray to win this funk, and hope time passes faster when you're drunk. Well, they sent me up for shooting you, my dear. Next 50 years I'll be dying for a beer. Oh, I can't tell if this pain will ever end, and set this beer-starved heart back on a mend. Well, as I lay... Okay, there we go. We are rolling. Rocking and rolling. Down to the beach we was strolling. Anyway, hey, how's everybody doing? All the 12 people that'll watch this, that's fine, that's fine. It's a growing thing. It's like a wave. It builds up momentum over time, eventually, whatever. You know, that's not guaranteed. None of that is guaranteed. Don't listen to what I'm saying. All right, so I went over the basic game last week. So today we're going to be going over the beginnings of the advanced game. I'm going to make a short video. It's not going to be super long. We're just going to go over today card type. So we're part two. It's called Shit Gets Real in the book. Here, I'm going to put the book there. See, it says it right here. Shit Gets Real. Anyway, that's it's my terrible design structure. Very, very 90s-esque subject matter. Whatever. Don't listen to me. Okay, so anyway, we went over basic game. Ooh, let me adjust some stuff here. To readjust some stuff. So with the design that I have so far, I have 6 different card types, as we can see before us. We have the 6 different card types. Perhaps I should put, because I think I made one of each at the very last. We'll do that one. We'll put that one on top. You're not going to be able to tell a whole lot of difference between the different card types from looking at them, except for the names on them. And the top here will have a different kind of thing. I've been thinking of a way. I don't necessarily have. I don't have. How do I put this? I don't necessarily have any plans to make the cards look, aside from like these ones right here and the debaters. Everything else is going to kind of have the same kind of look and feel to it, except for maybe a couple different indicators that it's going to be different things. Of course, the reason behind that, the reasoning that I had, is that because all of the cards function relatively the same, is it necessary that we designate more than just their ability in a little blurb like right here? Or in the case of these ones here, which we'll get to these little special ones here. I don't think I actually have. I do have some with kind of art. I have placeholder art in a couple of these. We'll put that on top. And then I have these over here. I don't have any artwork for the one type of the secondary type. Well, technically there are 2 different types of this card, but it's kind of, they function relatively the same way, sort of. There's 2 different types of that. It's like a subtype, I guess you could say. So we'll just go over some of these right off the bat. We've got our, how's this? We have the debater first. Then we've got our gotcha, our loadeds, our basics. We'll just do this. We're going to do them in order. We're going to go over them in order. So those are the basics. Then we have our merch. We'll put that there. And then finally we have our distractions. You'll be able to tell the distractions because they look like a certain, they look different. All right. So those are the distractions. Let's start off, though, talking about the debaters, all right? So like we went over like we went over with the basic game. Everything here is interchangeably useful for multiple different facets of the game. For instance, with the debaters, you can use them. You can use them. You'll have one to start off with in constructed, or you'll have a version of this for different tournaments, depending on what the tournament is, or different competitions, different rule sets. There's not going to be so different a rule set, but you'll generally have something that functions as a debater that you start the game with, and it'll have the two sides. It'll have the regular side, and it'll have the enraged side, and that also accounts for like the rule book has a regular side and an enraged side. You got to get the idea with that. Anyway, so you've got the debaters, but using them in a deck, you can also do in this. So they serve dual functions. So for instance, if you wanted to put Alex Jones in your deck and use a different debater in play, right? So this will be the guy you start with. You're allowed to put the actual other debaters into your deck. There are some rules that go along with it. We'll get into a little bit of that, and then we'll move on. Just to go over the basics, like I said, the advanced game ramps up a little bit. The simplicity of the first game takes a slight deviation. So anyway, so you've got your debaters. Let's say you've got one to play with, and you want to put, like, say, one of them into your deck. Okay, so the rules for how you play these in your deck are very simple. You must use sleeves because there's two sides, right? So you must have opaque or something that is not translucent sleeves, which most collectible card game players are already well prepared in that already. They're using sleeves. Now, the rules for it is you choose one of the sides, and it can be either of the sides. Most likely, you're going to want to use the side with the ability on it, but not necessarily always, because some of the abilities will not correlate well, but they kind of do. All right. Now, when you use these with the ability up, you basically get the use. Okay, so they work also. Okay, let's just strip this off. They work as the word. Okay, which everything works as the word. So you can use them in a sentence. You can use them in an argument as a sentence thing. They don't give you any additional benefits for that. They cost the same amount, and they don't give you an addition. But you can choose to use them as a distraction also. And we'll get to we're going to move. We're going to skip everything, and we're going to go right to distractions after we do this, because it's. I think these two kind of they go together hand in hand. So when you use them as a distraction, right? You'll notice on the distractions, we're going to jump over to the distractions real quick and explain how distractions work. So again, you can use everything as a word. That applies to all of the cards. So I'm going to stop talking about how you can use them as a word. We're just going to assume they can all be used as a word from this point forward. But if you want to use them as the additional abilities as per what the card types are, you can also do that. They cost the same amount. They carry the same bonuses if you have a debater that matches the symbols. So we're going to pull out this guy. Actually, let's pull out a guy that's a little more limited. Let's pull out Tim Poulon as a rage side. So if you have the red, or the what we call our our conservatives, distractions kind of work like this. You've got your main sentences going for your argument. You can drop a distraction down, and distractions work like I'm going to read a little bit here from the book. I think that might help out. Have you ever known anyone who said or did something so infuriatingly stupid that it actually caused you physical pain? Our scientists have atomically distilled this phenomenon and chemically infused it into card-like permutations that we like to call distractions. Think of distractions as your last line of defense and your front line of offense. Okay, so what that means basically is when you play these, say you've got your sentences, your main arguments down, which would be the basic game format, right? You're playing those simultaneously. You can also do additional effects with the other cards. Gotchas, loadeds, basics have like an automatic effect on some of them. Some of them just are basically just a word. Some of them have an automatic effect. Some of them are just a word. And then you've got merch, which acts kind of like equipment, that kind of thing. So think of it this way: it's kind of you've got your basic game down where you're playing with your arguments. This is what we like to call an alternative win condition. See, in the advanced game, there are two ways to win. You can win by defeating your opponent's deck, much like the basic game. So it life decks off the top. You go through debates. The loser of the debates loses cards off the top of their deck or from their hand. And if the first person to lose all their cards loses the game. That's how that works. That's the first victory condition. The second victory condition is what we like to call violence. And violence is if you have your debater, this is why we skipped straight to distractions, right? If you've got your main debater, we're going to say Tim Pool, here's our main debater, right? He's on his regular side, right? Distractions deal something we call physical damage. And when you're playing the cards and you're dealing, like say if I play the cards to get them to flip over, right? To get him to flip over, you need to do an amount of damage to it, technically, that exceeds his composure, right? And then he flips over to the other side, as we kind of went through with the first version of the game, or the basic game. So you've got two different types of damage. There's what I like to call ego damage, and then there's distraction or violence damage, physical damage. So how this works is both types of damage can get a character to get your opponent to flip over, right? Now remember the rules for flipping, or what we call flipping out. The rules for flipping out are if you deal the amount of damage exceeding their composure, they flip over. If they're already flipped over and you deal the amount of damage exceeding their composure, you can choose to flip them back, or you can flip something else yourself back instead. If you're not flipped over, you don't have to flip anything over. There's kind of a rule for that word. You're not forced to flip anything except for the first time you flip over. So if you deal, like if both players start off and they're both on their calm side, and you deal enough ego damage, which would be using your cards normally in playing an argument, it exceeds his amount of composure, he would flip over normally. The next turn, your opponent gets the same option, right? But he can't flip his guy back over. He has to target your guy first. So if your guy's already flipped over, you see how the dynamic works there? Now here's where violence damage comes in. Right? And I call it direct. Okay, so direct damage comes from that's what we call it, is direct damage and ego damage. So ego damage happens when you're playing an argument, and direct damage happens from debaters or from other sources, or not debaters, but from distractions or other sources. So for instance, let's take a look at one of these distractions here. We're going to bring them up close here, and hopefully you can see. I got to angle that in right. All right, down at the corner here, it's kind of like that other game, right? There's a 1 and a 1, 1/1. The first one is going to be his aggression. The second one here, the second number, is going to be his composure, right? These numbers up here, these work exactly the same. This is going to be his ball cost and his points box, right? Works exactly the same. But in this case, the only one you're going to have to do, like for instance, if you're playing him and you want to play him as a distraction instead of a word, you pay the same cost with the same bonuses or negative modifiers, and you place him next to or in front of your debater on the board. That's how that plays out. So he's there, and if you want to use him to attack, you can you can utilize the ability on here, or you can actually do an actual, like the other game, an attack. But it's slightly different. When you use these guys to attack, you're going to do the amount of aggression damage to either any of their distractions, or if they have no distractions, it goes directly to their debater. Now, how this works, if you do, say, Joe Biden's damage here, which is 1, and you choose to attack with them, like say your opponent is out here and he wants to attack your Tim Pool, that's your main character, right? And he's got his Joe Biden out in front of, say, his let's say his Alex Jones here, right? So let's say he's calm, and you guys are playing the regular sentences like normal, and he's got this one distraction that he drops down while he's playing, because you can play them simultaneously with the other cards. So if you've got like 2 words you want to put down, or 1 word you want to put down, and you can put a distraction down too, it works the same way. You use the same structure. So if he's got 9 aggression, you get 9 points. So he would be able to play 6 more points of something with this. Seeing he doesn't have any blue in his wheelhouse, he wouldn't get any negative modifiers. If it was, say, the other way around, though, if it was Tim Pool he was playing it, it would only cost him 2. So you'd have 7 more points to use for other stuff. You can use them for all distractions. That's what I said. It's an alternate win condition. You can actually legitimately make a distraction-only deck to a combat. That would be a perfectly viable way of winning the game. However, doing this type of damage is a little trickier than winning it normally. It's a little harder. There's going to be some roadblocks in the way. For instance, the first thing you'll notice, composure changes for both sides, right? Now, the way you win with a distraction deck or doing direct damage is if, under the specific circumstances that your opponent is on the enraged side, and you do direct damage, not a combination, it has to be solely direct damage, of greater than his composure, you win the game. All right? So if you wanted to do a heavy distraction deck, you could have your whole mission is going to be to distract them with the words and keep that fight so you don't lose it. But also, you're going to want to have multiples of the distractions in play to be able to fully attack for, say, in this case, more than 11 damage on Alex Jones. Or let's flip it back to Tim Pool. You would have to get 8 damage, direct damage or more in order to win. And you win the game in the moment you knock the opponent out. And that's what would happen. But he has to be on the enraged side, and you have to do damage that is only direct damage of greater than his composure. And that is before he's allowed to flip back over. Because if he flips back over, now again, direct damage works both ways. You can do direct damage greater than his composure, and that will flip him out back to the enraged side. You start to see how that works with distractions? Distractions are kind of an additional victory condition mixed with a diversionary method of messing with your opponent. So they work a lot like the other games, sort of, but they don't really. There's a little bit of a difference. So, for instance, let's go back to the scenario here. You're going to play, say, let's do Joe Biden again. He's an easy one to do. All right. So you've got Tim out, and let's say he's over on his, let's say he's on his enraged side, right? Let's say Alex Jones is also on his enraged side. Okay? And you want to attack with Joe Biden, and you're attacking directly into Alex Jones. You just flip them over like that, and this is what we call fapping. And it happens for certain cards that you put into play if you want to use their ability. The reason why it happens this way is because we do not have a ready turn until after the debate is over. So really, you only get one shot with any distractions, unless there are other card effects which change that. So once it's flipped over, it's considered to be out of play. It's no longer targetable. which means now that you've attacked with him, it leaves you open for any attacks. And let's say his next turn, he comes up and he wants to play a Donald Trump down. He drops a Donald Trump down, and now you're open for attack too, right? Now, unlike ego damage, direct damage is cumulative, okay? But it's only cumulative on the side as it remains on that side. So there's some tricky stuff that has to happen. You want to make sure that your opponent stays enraged, but the next turn they get, they're gonna play enough cards most likely to flip him back, unless your guy is not enraged. You see? So there's a little bit of, you got to think a little bit, what do you call it? A little bit off to the side, a little right angles and stuff. You're doing a little strategizing. So there's a little bit of strategy involved with using distractions. Most of the time, I don't foresee a lot of people. I don't have a ton of distractions that I put in here. And the reason was I don't want it to be so combat heavy on that end. I want people to have to work for their violence victories. They're going to be tougher than going for a regular victory. But it's definitely something that with enough cards, people could experiment with. Gives a little bit of how do we put it? My brain's died. A surprise. It's going to be like I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Anyway, so I'm going to move on. It's a secondary victory condition that you can use along with your main victory condition that potentially can give you a win. I also wanted eventually to put out debaters that have abilities that are more aligned with doing violence victory conditions versus doing normal ego damage victory conditions. That's to make these. I mean, like I said, there's going to be some major changes between the basic game, which is basically the backbone of the whole thing. You're still playing the basic game through all this, but you're adding more indirect elements. So you're getting some stuff that's going to crisscross and change up strategies. You're going to have to change on the fly. For instance, the next major card type we have here are gotchas. Now, I've been thinking about this because I didn't have a rule for it in the rule book. So when I have to do it when I have to do edit to the rule book, we're going to be adding this in. I think what I've decided to do with these, because there was a problem that I was having during your turn. I've got it completely figured out on how you play cards, right? You pay the points, you play the card, regardless of whether it be a gotcha, whether it be a distraction. Back before we move on to that, how these guys work. If you're playing with a debater as a distraction in your deck, so that's a choice that you make to use sleeves. You put them in the deck normally. You can only use one of them. They're limited to one per deck, per individual name. So if I've got a Tim Pool, I can put one Tim Pool in. I can't use. There's a normal limit of 4 per each card in the deck. So if you wanted to have 4 Joe Biden cyborgs, unless it specifies otherwise on the card itself, you can use up to 4 in a deck when you're doing constructed. The exception comes from using a debater. Debaters are going to be unique per deck. So if your opponent can use the same debater, but you can use the debater. Again, too, it doesn't. You can play the same debater versus. I don't have any rules for like, if you're gonna play, you got to switch out debaters or anything like. No, we're not. Your deck's gonna be tuned to whichever one you want. So you could literally have 2 Tim Pools playing each other. You cannot, however, have a Tim Pool in your deck if you're using Tim Pool. That's one of the rules. So you can't use Tim Pool in the deck if you're playing Tim Pool. All right. However, there's going to be rules for different names. For instance, we've got 2 different versions of Alex Jones, right? In this case, it has a unique name, Alex Jones Gorilla and just regular Alex Jones. A unique name, you can have one of each unique name in the deck. They're each uniquely unique, I guess you could say. So you could have one Alex Jones in the deck, and you can have one Alex Jones Gorilla in the deck. And that works similarly to having just like one Tim Pool. If there was a Tim Pool Master Debater card that had a different title or slightly different title, then you would be able to use that. You could also use that in your deck, but it works a little bit different for the same name as your debater. If it's in your deck, you don't have to use it as just a word or a distraction. You can also use it as a change of guard, which is basically you can replace, and then this one gets discarded, the new card with the old card as your actual debater. And its costs the same. Like you'd have to pay that full price in order to do that. Everything is going to be basically aligned the same way. If you're wondering how the card plays, it's always going to be the cost right here versus how much aggression you have. If you have 9 aggression, you can play an 8 cost card. But that's pretty much all you're doing that turn. And then it's going to go over to your opponent. That can be beneficial, it can be a detriment. It's all about choices. It's the game of choices. So, again, going back to how these guys work as a debater, we went through that. But as a distraction, like say if you have them in your deck, right? They play just the same way as a regular distraction would. Except instead of the numbers at the bottom here, like we have on this one, instead of the numbers at the bottom, you're going to take their actual aggression and their actual composure. And those are going to be their stats. Notice they're a lot bigger, right? There's a specific rule for this, unless specified otherwise. The damage that you would do to your opponent by fapping him and attacking counts only as ego damage for any debaters being used as distractions, right? But so that's not exactly what you're looking for to win, because it's just, but you can use it in conjunction. You could use Alex Jones, right? Say you wanted to do that, and it would flip it over. It would put him out of play for the turn, and that would be your allotment of whatever you did. You could then follow it up with an attack from another distraction. So it would, in this case, it would do enough to flip out most characters to their other side, to enraged, and then you would have to have enough damage in order to knock them out. So that's one of the bonuses of using a debater as a distraction. The other bonus you get for using a debater as a distraction is you can use their ability as well as their wheelhouse for playing cards. So as long as you have him in play, say if you've got Tim Pool as your main debater, and you bring out an Alex Jones enraged as your distraction, right? You can use the ability, and he would fap and go out of play, and you'd only be able to use it once, so it gives you a little bump just that one time. Or you could keep him in play, and you get the bonus from his conspiracy theory. So that's an additional element for using these guys. But again, like I said, they're one per deck per individual name. So Alex Jones enraged, you would only be able to have one in. Alex Jones, you would only be able to have one in. Again, too, that's the thing with these also. If you had 2 copies of the Alex Jones card, where you have the 2 different sides, you could legitimately use one Alex Jones enraged on one, and you could use a second Alex Jones regular, and then you could also use an Alex Jones gorilla. But you can't have any more than that. You can't have 2 Alex Jones gorillas, you can't have 2 Alex Joneses, and you can't have 2 Alex Jones enrages in your deck. So it gives a little bit of variable choices that you can make, some options. All right, so moving on, let's go back to not distraction. I'm all stuck on distractions now. Anyway, so let's go back to gotcha cards. So gotcha cards, you can think of these guys as instant effects, right? You can use them as a word, like usual, but you can also use them as an instant effect. And when you use them as an instant effect, you put them into play above your discard. You go through the effect, and then it goes directly into your discard after it's done. That's how instant effects work. Now, the ruling that I came up with this, it works the same as any other card. You pay the cost, right? And then you put it into play. Just like I said, as either a word if you want, or as a gotcha. Gotcha is going to be the instant effect. It goes into play and immediately resolves, right? Now, timing issues. This is the problem I was having. Say it's your opponent's turn and you have a gotcha card that you'd really like to play because it cancels one of their cards or does something during their turn. Any gotcha card, as far as I can tell right now, is going to be perfectly safe to be played on either turn. But I didn't know exactly how I was going to do it. And then I figured it out. I think I figured it out. So anyway, on your debater, during your turn, aggression is how many points in cards you can play during your turn of the argument, right? You can play gotchas like normal, just like normal like that. As a word, as a gotcha, it comes from your aggression. Now, if it's not your turn, if it's your opponent's turn and he's playing his stuff, you can still play only gotcha cards because they're an instant effect. But the difference is you use your composure instead of your aggression. All right? So, and like you see, sometimes your composure is going to be less depending on which position you're in. But sometimes it'll be more. Like, for instance, this Alex Jones right here, he's got zero composure. You're not playing any instant effects with this or gotcha cards during your opponent's turn with this card. But there's a lot of other stuff you got to worry about with this card if you're using him as your debater. For instance, he doesn't have a second side. That means he's already enraged. In fact, it even says so here, always enraged. This is what we like to call, oh man. My brain is just absolutely dead tonight. I don't know what the hell's going on, but this is a high risk, high reward card. If you're playing with this, you're going to definitely want to have a constructed deck that can back it up because you got a really strong chance of just going down real fast. This is my first attempt at doing something that is probably strongly related to a violence win. You're going to want to have a lot of distractions to block for this guy because as soon as he takes 1 point of damage, you've lost the game. That's kind of what I wanted to do with it. Or, again, too, you can just stick him in your deck and then put him into play as a distraction instead. So, again, too, you get this card, you don't have to use him, but you can use him in your deck. I wanted to mitigate the ability, like having useless cards. Like, for instance, Star Wars CCG originally had light side decks and dark side decks. You could be going, and most people would have one deck of each, right? But here's the bad side, right? If you were playing a light side deck, you can't put Darth Vader in it. But if you got a Darth Vader, you're gonna want to play with it. So you're gonna be like, well, man, I'm gonna have to build a dark side deck. Just to use that as an example, you don't have that problem with this game. You can use any card, to varying degrees of effectiveness within your deck. Even something like, say, an Alex Jones Gorilla with one side like that comes in useful. So it's something that, there's multiple options. Again, choices. The game's all about making choices. So, on to gotchas. That was what I kind of figured with gotchas. So you're going to see stuff like this one here. This one's gotcha. It's nuclear discard hand. Discard all arguments in play. All players redraw to full retention. And you would do that as a gotcha effect. It would be an instant effect. It would come into play and it would immediately resolve. Timing issues would go like this. If your opponent plays the card and they play their own gotcha loaded or word card or anything that's on their turn, you could then react with your own card on top of it. At which point they would be able to react, and we're using a stacking mechanism. It's the simplest way of doing it. So if you play a card like, say, let's get something here. All right, so say you see something coming, or your opponent plays like, say, nuclear. You don't want nuclear to go off. You could look for a card like, let's see what it is here. I need this one. All right, so Democrats. Cancel one conservative card or loaded effect in play or as it is played. All right? They play a nuclear on their turn. You could say, nah, I don't want that to happen, and I'm going to cancel that with this card, which is going to make that card go away. But it costs you 2 points from your composure after he's already spent 2 points of his aggression. All right? At which point he can then go, whoa, Mr. Buddy Balls. I don't like the cut of your jib. And he's going to play a Republicans on top of that, which is cancel one blue, which is liberal, or gotcha card effect played or in play. And then you would resolve it thus way. The stack would keep going until the final card is played for that stack, and then it would resolve completely. Finalizing, if this card cancels this card, then nuclear goes off. If there's in fact another card on top of this, which cancels this card, which was an attempt to cancel that. So the next one down is going to be what the next effect is going to be. So there is actually, you could stack it and stack it and stack it, and the stack could go and go and go, because every game has that. There is something in here somewhere. I saw it earlier. Yes, here it is. Scandal. Cancel one liberal or conservative card in played or as it is played. Costs 3. You could then just play a scandal and cancel that, but notice it's got a lot of stuff there that potentially leaves it open for being canceled further, and so on and so forth. So that is what I figured out for using gotchas. Like I said, this game is a work in progress right now. I want to say, like, in the scale of like 1 to 10 of between initial development and final product, we're in the 5 area still. Just to clarify that, just to set that up for everybody. I'm just checking my time real quick here. Okay, just to set that up. So gotchas, I think that's what I've finally solidified for as for the rules for how that works. And it seems so far to be a good decision, I think. So gotchas, instant effects. Now loadeds are kind of like the opposite of that. Loadeds you can't generally play at any time. They're going to work like a permanent effect that comes into play. And you're going to put them next to your distractions. Like, see, you got Tim Pool out here, and you want to put loaded. You're going to put it like next to him, like over here. There's going to be a bar right here where you're going to put all your abilities that are permanent cards and also your merchandise. Now, you might think that loadeds and merchandise are kind of redundant, but they're not. Loadeds generally are just a card effect that stays in play until normally it'll say on the card, once per debate, cancel direct damage from any one source. That'll be something that stays in. Once per debate is misleading, right? This stays in for the whole game, okay? But every time you're going through a debate, you get to do that ability. Versus something like this. Actually, I have to reword that one. This one should say once per debate also. It says once per turn. That's confusing. So once per debate, cancel one conservative card if Joe Biden in play, or cancel an effect that would cancel one of your cards as it is used. So it'd be something that stays in play that acts as a canceller, right? So that would be something you can play also at any time, but it doesn't cost you any balls to use its effect, right? And it's once per debate. So as soon as you use it, you would flip it over to its other side and fap it, and it would go out of play theoretically until the next ready round, just to make sure you're staying honest. All right. Now, loaded effects, like I said, they're going to be like permanent effects for the most part. Some of them will be timed. Some of them will be like for 3 turns, for 2 turns, stuff like that. Some of them will stay in play for the whole game. Most of them will you be able to use their effect one time per debate, and then it kind of goes away until that. Now, here's the thing, right? Cards that are fapped cannot be targeted by other cards. very strict on this. They can't be targeted unless it says in a card effect that they can be targeted. So of course, every collectible card game has something like that. The rules are like this unless specified on the card. So if it says something like if it can be targeted, then it can be targeted. But most generally, in normal situations, any kind of FAP card that is for gameplay purposes technically out of play cannot be targeted. All right. So that is loaded cards. Just a permanent effect if you played collectible card games. Now, again, I was saying it might seem like merchandise is redundant when it comes to permanent effects, but these ones also will be something that you can either add for the one debate or for the whole game. So remember, a debate is just like a phase of the game. You go through one debate, and if you haven't won yet, you go to a second debate. Right? And that is, I just want to make sure I'm getting that right. Yeah, debate resolution phase. So the whole game is the game. The debates are individual rounds. So you're going through an individual round, which would be the start of from the start of a debate to the end of the debate where it resolves. And then you count the tally up the points. You do your damage to your deck, and then you move on to the next debate. Merchandise, most of the time, will be something you add to your character that will stay in play like a loaded card. However, unlike a loaded card, there are other cards that will allow you to play these on your opponent's characters also sometimes. If it meets the gameplay description, for instance, Roberto here replaces any Roberto Jr., right? That's any Roberto Jr. So if your opponent has a Roberto Jr. of their own in play, you can replace it with a Roberto. I don't know why you'd want to do that. The idea is to keep the Roberto Jr. on there because replaces any Roberto. Roberto and Roberto Jr. will replace each other, all right? One of them is a negative effect, and the other is a positive effect, right? So and that's why we've got Roberto Jr. here is replaces any Roberto or may attach to any debater who just flipped out. Reattaches to any subsequent debater who flips out. Debater -2 to all stats. So it gives a negative effect that sticks with them until they flip out. Or until someone else flips out, I should say. They can flip out as many times. So if you've got a Roberto Jr. on you, and you flip out, and it ends up on you because of the flipping out. If you flip out again, it sticks with you, right? You have to flip your opponent out in order for it to move over to them. But you could also replace it with a Roberto in that case, at which point Roberto replaces any Roberto Jr., debater +1 to all stats, and adds bullshit artist to wheelhouse. Discard after current debate. So this one doesn't stick around for the whole game. He gets discarded after the end of the debate. So he doesn't stick around for the whole game. Which means you're open then for another Roberto. Roberto will stick around for the whole game. I thought about some of these. There was some thought going into it. In case anyone was wondering. Merch kind of works like equipment. It's going to be like an equipment piece that you can put on. I've been toying with the possibility of limiting equipment to one piece. I've been toying with that. So that you have like one equipment slot that you can fill with one piece of equipment. You can have any number of loaded cards in play, but only one piece of equipment. That's what I'm thinking. That's where I'm leaning towards. However, I haven't finalized it. It's not in the rule book. If anybody's actually interested in doing any play tests with this game, feel free to use that ruling and to use it without the ruling and tell me how it works out, because I'm going to be doing the same thing. We're going to be testing both versions. It's been a while since I've tested. I've been doing the artwork, if you hadn't noticed. It's taken a while. It's kind of taking the entire day. Well, for an hour anyway. All right, so we went through gotchas, loadeds, merchandise. We went through distractions. Basic cards. We saved the easiest one for last. All right. So we've got two different kinds of basic cards. I'm just going to move these guys around a little bit, put everything back where they're supposed to. All right, so we've got your basics, and you got your dualies. Call them dualies because we'll go over those guys first. Right? Dualies are like this. They're going to be cards like this one here, which is going to be like, if you can read it, it's before and after. So before and after, which means you can choose which word you want to use. You'll notice there's nothing else on here. I meant these to go, like a set of these was going to go in every starter deck. That's what these exist for. They're going to be nice words that can use in multiple different ways, like before and after, open and close, adult and child, over and under, begin and end, above, below. Then we get to some fun ones, like this one. This is there, and where. All right? Being 3 different spellings to be used in 3 different ways. Okay? So that's kind of the idea behind these. They're going to be nice cards you can put in your deck that will help you create sentences for your argument. Will and won't. Give and take. My favorite. Penis and vagina. Actually, this is my favorite. I changed my pick. This is man and women. The reason I love this one so much is because this one cannot be used by liberals. And I just thought that was just the cleverest little joke. That's technically my favorite card in the whole game, I think, right now. It still makes me giggle every time I think about it. I'm a weird fella. It's a dad joke. I turned a dad joke into a card. All right. Anyway, back and forth, left and right, empty, full, lost, found, big, small. Another one that's got like multiple choices. Not. You'll notice it's 3 different spellings of that. And then so, and sue. I had to come up with something. Anyway, it works. It's fine. There's no error there. All right. And then we got win and lose. And then this one here is but, and peach emoji. And then the other side we got and symbol, and plus. Don't judge me. All right. I did the best I can. I could. I'm doing the best I can. Anyway, that's the first type of basics. I call those dualies because it's got like 2, whatever. Anyway, so then we come to our regular basics. And these are going to be like regular cards you find throughout. There'll be different varying rarities, just like everything else. And these are going to have effect sometimes that can come into play. For instance, look at Hunter Biden here. Hunter Biden, when you play him as a word, mind you, you get the additional bonus of searching for Hunter's laptop merch card from deck and hide it under this card. Winner of this argument puts it into play on their board. They'll have little bonus effects like that. That's the other kind of basics. Again, too, you'll notice these ones. These ones generally do not have a wheelhouse on them. They might have something like man and woman here, which has the negative of a wheelhouse. It just means you can't use it by a certain group. But everybody else is going to be able to use it, but you don't get any additional bonuses for it. And they're also, you'll notice some of them like this one, there, and there's 0 cost. And a 1 point. They're not going to be the most profitable card. I wanted to keep them really low cost. I mean, look at not. I mean, literally, not's probably easy. So is probably easy, but the other ones there, I mean, you're going to earn those 4 points if you get it right. If you make a sentence that doesn't sound like complete gibberish. So you'll notice that's on those basic cards. But then you've got these ones. These ones are going to be more like alignment specific. You'll have some that'll have different alignments, they'll have different abilities. Twitter here, plus 2 points to this card when chained with Tucker Carlson, Donald Trump, or Elon Musk cards. So if you play, there's going to be a few of those cards that give you combos, like Twitter. So if you've got a Twitter, an Elon Musk, which just happens to be he's a distraction. So if you've got a Twitter, Elon Musk, and Donald Trump, which is also a distraction, right? If you have those and you use them in a sentence, you get bonus points for it. Or at least to this card. You get an additional 2 points. So it'd be 5 points instead of 3. And if you notice here, that's 7 plus 4 plus 5. It's a heavy duty win if you can make that work in a sentence. Now this is 2 points to this card. It should say and chained. 2 points to this card and chained to Tucker Carlson. Oh, it gives 2 points to everything. So that would actually be 5, 9, and 6. So that's a pretty. Now the thing with that though is they don't have when they're chained. They just have to be in the chain somewhere. So it would be you can't make a sentence with Elon Musk, Twitter, Donald Trump, you know. But if you have them chained or any of the others, like it doesn't have to be all three of them. It just has to be one of these two. So if you have Elon Musk's Twitter and then the rest of the sentence, you would get bonus 2 points to those two cards, and the rest of the sentence would just be normal. That's kind of how those work. So the regular basics will have effects like that, and so on and so on. We are at 50 minutes. All right. Let's do. Let me see if there's anything I'm missing from the rule book for the actual different cards. I think the most confusing aspect of this is how debaters work. I think that's the thing that I had the hardest time describing. Everything else works basically like every other card game you've ever worked with. You've got instant effects, you've got permanent effects, and you've got creatures or something to attack with. These ones are a little more complicated than the other game. Merchandise, I'm still leaning towards that one per character. So if you're playing with the character, unless it specifies, you can only have one merch card in play at any time. Maybe even so far as to put, like, if you have a merch card already in play, you can replace it with the second merch card, which causes that first one to discard. I'm kind of leaning, I like the idea of that as I'm thinking about it more and more right now. So I'm kind of leaning that. And then you've got your basic cards, which are going to be like, they're going to be your backbone for creating words and creating sentences and filling combos up and getting the most bang for your buck to defeat your opponent. I think that's pretty much all I have to say on the different card types. I think because I knew it was going to take a little bit, I'm going to go through the sequence of play. And then we're going to go through it again next week when I do like an actual gameplay showcase. We're going to showcase a little gameplay, do a little example. We'll play it out I'll set it up where I'll split the into equal amounts, and then we'll have, because I have enough to make 2 decks. I think I have, 50 cards is the limit I put for the decks. So both players would have a maximum of 50 cards and a minimum of you have 50 cards. I'm using a set deck. I'm using the Star Wars rules or the Doomtown rules, which is everybody's deck is the same size. You're not going to have these massive. I always hated that. I hated games that had massive decks. It's just stupid. I once played with a guy that played a Star Trek deck that had like 500 cards in it, and just to make everybody angry, he didn't just sleeve these things. He put them all in top loaders. So he would come with one stack about yay high and a second stack about yay high. And then he would sit there for about a half an hour shuffling this stupid thing with a stupid smile on his face. Thought I'd just share that real quick. I can't stand that. And I've heard stories about the multiple thousands of cards in a Yu-Gi-Oh deck. No, we're not doing that. We ain't playing that game. Homie will not play that game here. 50 cards. That's it. That's all you need. You can't make a deck out of that. I don't know what to tell you. All right. Anyway, so sequence of play. We're just going to go over basic sequence of play. The basic game, the sequence of play was a little bit different. We're going to have to really get into some rules, but I'm going to read the sequence of play for you just to have, so there's something there. Prepare yourself. We'll go through it in depth next week. We'll start with the sequence of play again, and then we'll start and show you how everything kind of works together. All right, so sequence of play is the first thing is 1, draw and discard phase. The beginning of the game starts with the draw and discard phase. So you're going to start the game, draw and discard. You will draw up to your, what the hell did I call it? Retention. You'll draw up to your retention, depending on which character you start with and what's on their starting side. All right, and discard that comes into play after the first turn is over. So the discard actually there's a big deal with the discards in this. All right, so the untapped and ready phase would be the next thing you did. So if you had any cards like a merch card that you'd use the previous turn, you would unfap it and it would come back and be ready to be used one more time. Or in some cases, multiple times, depending on what cards you have. Then you've got your play phase, and you alternate turns with this. I play as many cards as I can up to my aggression during my phase, and then it alternates to the opponent. The opponent does the same, and then you keep doing that until both players consecutively pass. All right? And you have multiple things you can do during the play phase. You can play cards to an existing argument. You can start a new argument. You can link two existing arguments. We'll get into that next week. You can play distractions, merch, gotcha, or loaded cards. You can use a card effect on a card in play. You can take an action with a card in play, which is different, believe it or not, because taking an action would be like, say, attacking, versus using an effect would be using the effect box. So those are two separate things. You can pass. That's the last thing you can do for that. And then the last phase of the sequence of play is 4, debate resolution phase. And that's after both players have passed consecutively and the argument or the debate, that form of the debate, is over. And you're going to the debate resolution phase. And then you do your tally, so on and so forth. That's my alarm telling me it's time to go. So we're just going to cut this thing off now. If I can turn this annoying little thing off here. I'm going to do it. There we go. All right. Sorry about that. That was my alarm telling me it's time to go. Anyway, hey, so we went through the cards, and I can't remember how to speak, and that happens to me sometimes. Remember, neurological shit. It happens. All right. You don't want to be there when it does. It's generally unpleasant. I'm lucky I have as much cogence as I do these days, because it slips, and some days it's just not there. I'm practically a vegetable. Today we were like maybe 30% a vegetable. I hope I didn't confuse everybody too much. Anyway, I'm out of here. I'm gonna cut this thing off. We're calling it a night. That's it. So we went through that part. Next week we'll do gameplay. And yeah, that's gonna go smashing. I can just feel it already. Anyway, have a good one. I'm out of here. Bye bye.